Right, let's get into another video. Today, I'd like to talk about a proposed new order for how the government and society should work, specifically in relation to global politics. Now, let's say we have the world here. Obviously, this will be a very rough drawing of the world, so I don't expect it to be very good or accurate, but general gist. You have the world here, right? Italy, Spain, France, the United States, all the countries. And of course, you have Africa and the many countries that reside within it, and so on and so forth. Now, right now, most of them are part of the United Nations. The United Nations does a lot of things, but it works with many other groups like the International Monetary Fund, or IMF, the World Trade Organization, and the World Health Organization. Now, all these entities do their own things and operate under different ideas and belief systems, but they all cooperate to some extent. I'd like to abolish them. Now, why should be important, but the main thing is they're just inefficient and ineffective. I mean, think about it. The United Nations' job was to prevent another World War II, maintain peace, right? Instead, under its watch, we saw the Cold War happen. And what was that? A bunch of wars and actions that indirectly or directly cause constant instability and warfare in the places that could least afford it, the third world. And so, it didn't really succeed then. Does it succeed now? No. North Korea is still a dictatorship. The PRC is still committing human rights violations. South America is still full of dictators. No matter where we go, the United Nations has failed at its role. And the National Monetary Fund has helped a bit, but in terms of global banking and efficiency, still not that effective. World Trade Organization, plain and simply, a lot of countries have protectionist policies. It hasn't really pushed past that. And so we're still stuck in a situation where a lot of countries are protecting their trade, while the few that actually try to follow World Trade Organization rules generally are not. Plain and simply, the WTO just isn't that effective. And the World Health Organization, while it is one of the more noble international organizations, it has still had issues largely due to lack of protection. It's kind of hard to get vaccines to everyone when the people you need to protect you aren't there or are busy fighting warlords, or are the warlords themselves. That tends to make things difficult, to say the least. So what I would like to propose is a new world order based along the United States. I call it the American Sphere of Influence. Why do I call it the Sphere of Influence? Because I'm not blind to what I'm doing and what I am advocating for. Essentially, the way this will work is that arbitration is handled by the United States. Let's say there's a border dispute. Well, then the United States takes it over and handles things because it has the largest military, and will say, alright, here's what's going to happen. We're going to do this, and this is what's going to happen, and I'll use my military to enforce it. Essentially, everything is backed by the US military. Borders are decided by the US. On the same basis of arbitration, if we can't redraw borders, well, then we can't really arbitrate for land disputes. Protection, also the US. Think of this as a way to basically replace NATO. Instead of having a combined force of a bunch of countries which can stop bickering with each other for no apparent reason, France, instead, we just have one country doing the role of all the others when it comes to policing the world. It could even set up a little foreign division like the French used to have, and set it up so that people from other countries, like say in Western Europe, can join up and help defend global interests. But the US's role in this American sphere of influence will be purely defensive, protecting the people and ensuring the safety of liberties as well. So, guarantees of liberty will be done by this organization. For example, think of the Bill of Rights. I want you to imagine the Bill of Rights for your country. The United States has 10 initial Bill of Rights. Plenty of other countries have different ones. But the basic idea is that you have rights that are inalienable and cannot be changed. Well, if we take that natural rights and apply it to the American sphere of influence, this protection also extends to those rights. So it is the job of the military then to enforce those rights. If some government decides, hey, we're going to restrict free speech, the U.S. has full authorization to overthrow the government. If it tries to arrest its people in an unlawful search and seizure, again, the U.S. has the right to overthrow that country or at least stop the proceedings. Essentially, your rights are protected by the largest military on Earth, and this would allow for a coordinated effort to eradicate violations of people's rights, including, importantly, slavery. Human trafficking should be wiped from the face of the earth if possible. And so, these things together would allow for a strong defense. The role of the American sphere of influence is not to govern. Its role is not government, just maintaining peace and protecting the liberties of the people. As long as those are maintained, governments can do whatever they want within their realms. If France, for example, wants to establish a giant welfare state, France is welcome to. It'd be stupid, but they're welcome to. And so, in order to replace the World Trade Organization and other similar organizations, economic blocs will take the fold based on regions. So let's use the European Union as a model, this time scaled down because it can no longer hold its role as also governing people's rights and liberties. It would become purely a trade union, dedicated to standardizing procedures and regulations across all its member states. A new union could be formed in the Americas. I would propose calling it the American Economic Union, and it would serve the same role. Standardization of regulations and trade in order to maximize trade flows while minimizing costs and thus allowing everyone to get richer. An African Union would serve the same function. Now, of course, this all depends on the exact group, but the same principle applies for the rest of the world. Essentially, in order to acknowledge that different regions have different needs, by splitting these areas into regional economic blocs, which handle only trade and other such things, we can minimize the amount of bureaucratic complexity, which maximizes business effectiveness, allowing more people to get richer quicker, while simultaneously reducing the stress on countries who can instead focus on their people. Because, well, if you're not worried about tariff policies and how that might affect things or your businesses, and people are getting wealthier because they're standardized with a single currency and so on and so forth, you don't really have to worry about a lot. You can just focus on making your people's lives better and your laws fitted to your people. And that's where countries come in. Now, I am not a believer in the nation state. Not really. I believe that countries should have the same values as what is right. Naturally, that means I don't care if your nation says that having a child bride is acceptable. As far as I'm concerned, that should not be allowed. It's imperialistic, blatantly supremacist, but I don't care. But what is the role of the country then? Protecting culture, people. Apologies for the noise. It appears some people are making noise. I'll pause until it gets over. Right, seems like the noise is over for now. So back to the point. Protecting culture, people, and history. Now, along with this comes the basics of just any country. managing budgets, and constitutions. And of course, just general law also applies, but same principles. So essentially, the role of the country has been scaled down to maximize their efficiency at it. Again, sorry for the noise, but back to the point. Essentially, the role of the country has been scaled down. No longer is it handling border disputes on its own, protecting its national security, guaranteeing its liberties, though it can help. What the freak is going on? Back to the point. Because apparently people like making noise. Anyways, the idea is, by scaling things down, by making sure the countries have to handle less, not guaranteeing their liberties that they can't assist, not handling their own protection, though if they want they can contribute partially, and not handling things like tariffs and trade and leaving that to larger organizations, they can instead focus on what they're good at, protecting their people, culture, history, and just general budget management and ensuring laws are followed. Think of it like a separation. In the United States, we have an executive, legislative, and judiciary. Think of this idea of separation of powers and applying it to governance. Protection, trade, and economics, and just general politics. By dividing these up among 3 different and distinct groups, we minimize the overlap between many competing organizations, maximizing their efficiency at said jobs. It is division of labor, in essence. Separation of powers between different parts of management. So whereas the American sphere of influence will handle making sure everyone's safe, and the economic unions will ensure that everyone's trade standardized to maximize economic growth, the countries themselves in their own areas will manage things to make things better for their people within those limitations, by protecting their cultures, peoples, histories, and just generally managing day-to-day operations. Sure, there would be less independence for these countries because they're no longer managing tariff policies on the military, but simultaneously, they'd get the benefits of standardization, of efficiency, and of help from the entire globe. So in the end, the New World Order would help everyone. It's mutually beneficial. That'll be all. Thank you for watching.